nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and a new friend of the show from Chiefs Kingdom, Charles Goldman. Really excited to have him on the show. He's the managing editor of Chiefs Wire. So, Charles, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Charles, thanks again. So heading into week 3, the Chiefs obviously coming into this season, even though they're coming off of the Super Bowl, still had big expectations and not a ton of mystery, I guess, going this season. But what have you learned through the first 2 weeks of this season about the Chiefs?
You know, it's not going to be easy. I think that's what I've learned, especially after this last game against the Chargers. I mean, you look back at NFL history and teams with aspirations to repeat as Super Bowl champions in back-to-back seasons, it doesn't happen very often. And the Chiefs were talking a lot of talk this offseason about, becoming this next dynasty, about, coming back to this 2020 season and, kind of running through these teams back all the way to Super Bowl 55 there. And really this last game, it taught us that it's going to be tough. It's not going to be as easy as the talk. One of the major concerns, I think, right now coming out of these first 2 games is tackling. Missed tackles, man. I mean, I think it's a problem around the league. Teams really, after no preseason, they expected tackling to be an issue because you can't simulate live contact football in practice. You just can't do it. You don't have many live tackle periods. And even so, you're not going to tackle your own teammates the same way you are a guy who's, lining up in a different jersey. So I think missed tackles, big problem. I think the Chiefs are second worst team in the NFL right now in terms of missed tackles. So they need to clean that up. And, you're going against a team this next week, the Baltimore Ravens here. I mean, you guys, you run the ball a lot. You got some tough playmakers. You got to wrap them up. If the Chiefs can't wrap them up, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, speaking of not being able to wrap guys up, on the offensive side of the ball, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not many people have been successful at wrapping him up thus far, at least in the stuff that I've been able to see. We really liked him coming out of LSU. I know Glenn and I both did. We definitely weren't thrilled to see him get drafted by the Chiefs, speaking candidly. But what has he brought at this point already to a high-powered offense?
Yeah, he really gives them just another option. When you have all these other playmakers and weapons on the offense who can kind of spread teams out, they can't really stack the box to stop the run. So they don't have that extra guy in there. And then when they do put an extra guy in there, he's the type of guy who can make a miss in space. So he makes a guy miss, and he's got a little juice. He can take it to the house. I mean, we saw that in week 1 with his first touchdown there. But I mean, he's got a different type of skill set. A lot of people, when he was coming out, they're thinking that, okay, maybe he's going to have that same type of skill set to Kareem Hunt when Kareem Hunt was with the Chiefs. Just a guy who can kind of break some of these tackles, who's really just he's a tough out. I mean, and there's not much of him to tackle. Talking about missed tackles, I mean, he's 5'7". So he's got a small tackle box already. And he's low to the ground, low center of gravity, so you kind of just bounce off of him. If you can't get him by his legs, you're pretty much done for.
Yeah, he doesn't even need space. You're talking about making people miss his space, probably make people miss in a phone booth, man. My goodness.
Yeah, he's no joke. And the one thing that impressed me, I guess last week, another thing that impressed me about Kansas City is, man, Harrison Butker. That guy can kick the ball, can he? I mean, my goodness, they tried to make him kick it 15 times. They kept scooting him back, and he just kept lining up. And honestly, he kept getting better. It was like he was just getting warmed up with those practices. So, of course, here in Baltimore, everybody knows and loves Justin Tucker. But does this game feature and preview the 2 best kickers in the whole league?
I think it certainly does. And I mean, the crazy thing is, you could have backed him up another 10 yards and he would have made it. This offseason, Butker, he was training. I can't remember the facility off the top of my head here, but he was training out this summer, and he was hitting 77-yard field goals on the 77 yards on the regular in practice. I mean, it's a little different when you don't have a pass rush coming at you and you don't have those big guys trying to get their hands up there. But I mean, 77 yards, that's just unheard of. And yeah, he was saying after the game that each time they backed him up or they stopped the play, he was getting angrier. He was kicking angry. And I guess that gives him a little juice to his kicks too. So don't make the guy angry. We should call him the Incredible Hulk or something. I mean, he was hulking out as a kicker over there. And I mean, that leg, my goodness. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him make a longer kick than 58 yards at some point this year.
Yeah, he is no joke. Well, on the offensive side, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that the three leading target getters right now are Kelsey, Hill, and Watkins. But outside of those three guys that everyone knows and is well publicized, who else should the Ravens be worried about on the outside of those three guys?
You know, one guy that's not getting enough attention is Demarcus Robinson. I mean, he's kind of in the mix there. He's somewhere like either third or fourth in terms of snaps for the receivers right now. But I actually found a weird stat on him when I was looking up some numbers today. He leads the NFL in average separation with, I think, 6.5 yards of separation.
Jeez.
Which is crazy because you don't think of him as a speedster. But, I mean, it's actually over a full yard more than the next closest receiver in the NFL right now. So that's a guy who – and he has some chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. He came up with him in the Chiefs system like 2017. He was working with him on the scout team when Alex Smith was still the quarterback. So when you look at some of those, magical plays that Mahomes has had throughout his career, one of the guys who's often the recipient is Demarcus Robinson. He's got some strange sense when Mahomes starts to scramble and run around and do his thing. He has some sense and knows how to get open in those situations. And he's someone to watch out for, especially this week. You mentioned Sammy Watkins. We don't know what's going on with Watkins right now. He might be in the concussion protocol. The Chiefs haven't really confirmed or denied that yet. Andy Reid said after the game that he expected him to be in the concussion protocol, but he didn't know for sure. And we'll probably find out more about that soon. But they could potentially be without Watkins this week.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like every scrambling quarterback, that makes me think of like Aaron Rodgers with James Jones, back in the day where they just had a connection. When he started rolling around, things went off script. They just, they had that chemistry with one another. So that's definitely an interesting one for us to keep an eye on here in Baltimore as well. But one of the things we want to talk about, obviously, the offense in KC gets all the attention, rightfully so. The defense has some players as well. The interior of the Ravens O-line will have a huge task in slowing down what a lot of people consider to be the second best D lineman, of course, behind Aaron Donald, in Chris Jones. And so how worried should the Ravens fans be about Chris Jones?
This team is actually they're pressuring the quarterback at a rate that we haven't seen in quite some time in Kansas City. Pass rush, really past couple of years, has been a little stale for us. But this year, I mean, along that defensive line, they've got some depth. And I mean, Chris Jones, he's the big name that you're looking for. He's the guy you're circling, and you're trying to figure out a way to stop him. But can you? I mean, if you double a guy like Chris Jones, you're given those one-on-one matchups on the outside. And the Chiefs have an array of weapons that can get to the quarterback on the outside now. They've got Tano Passanio, Frank Clark. They have fifth-round rookie Mike Dana. They've got Taco Charlton, who had a heck of a game against the Chargers. And it was actually his Chiefs debut this last week. So, they've got a couple other guys. Undrafted free agent defensive tackle Tershawn Wharton. He's a guy who's been getting a lot of hype this offseason, this preseason, and I mean, it's great to watch these guys get after the quarterback. Chris Jones in particular, man. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to be the guy to have to block him.
Seriously.
The Stone Cold Jones nickname, man. He is stone cold. He will get you.
Yeah, and I tell you, Frank Clark is so fast off that edge. It's incredible. I mean, I watched him in that Houston game. His burst coming around the edge is absolutely incredible. So hopefully for Baltimore and their fans' sake, the length of Orlando Brown is the great equalizer, because we know he has some long arms on him.
Yeah, and Clark, he's got some dog to his game. Like he's gonna get got a couple times. Someone's gonna take advantage of him, but he's gonna keep battling, and he's gonna get his too. He is relentless as a pass rusher. And this last game he wasn't feeling well. He had some hydration issues going on. Had to leave the second half of the game with an illness. But when he's feeling 100%, he goes.
Yeah, he's no joke. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, I was going to say, speaking of dog, I think this guy, is in this category as well. While his nickname is a different animal, the other defensive star, of course, is the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. How does Kansas City use like his versatility of talent? He does a ton of different things, but is he someone that the Ravens should always keep an eye on pre-snap? And how does Kansas City utilize him?
Yeah, it's so hard to even keep an eye on him pre-snap because he does so many different things. They kind of use him like the old Eagles defensive back, Weapon X.
Dawkins.
Yeah, Dawkins.
Dawkins, my man. Loved Dawkins back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of use him in a similar way. I mean, they'll line him up all over the field, slot corner, strong safety, free safety. They'll line him up at linebacker. They'll line him up outside linebacker. They'll send him after the quarterback, drop him into coverage, man him up against tight ends. I mean, he just does everything, and really it's matchup dependent. I think this game, he might end up spending some time covering some of the talented tight ends for the Ravens. He might spend some time in the slot just because they're going to be likely without their slot receiver, Antonio Hamilton, this week. So I have a feeling he'll play a lot of those slot snaps. But yeah, I just we'll just see, man. I'm always so excited when he gets on the field because I don't know what's coming next.
Right.
I mean, even this last game, he just had a couple of really just great moments. He had a great pass breakup against Mike Williams. He had another pass rush. I think it was the last play of the game. He came in there and pressured Justin Herbert. I mean, it was just he's incredible.
He's one of those few guys. One of those few guys I feel like that fit in a category of safeties that can make plays that look like backyard football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that just fits in with what the Chiefs do best. I mean, it's not always pretty, as we saw last week, but they just find a way to gut it out, and they do what they have to do.
I hate that we have to wait till Monday night. Oh!
I know. I could watch it right. I could watch it right now.
Any chance they put Honey Badger on Jackson as a spy?
It's actually, you know what? I think they're not going to do that. I think that the guy who's going to spy Jackson, and they played a little bit around with this in week 1. You can actually go back and watch Dorian O'Daniel, who's I believe he's 2018 number 100 overall pick. And he hasn't really had much of a great career in Kansas City, mostly been a special teams guy. But they played around a little bit with that first week. He was playing spy a little bit with Deshaun Watson. And he had a sack on Watson on this great coffee house blitz. It actually looked like he might have been spying him, but then he was like, you know what? I think I can make this work, and just came in on the coffee house blitz and got him. But I think he's going to be the guy. And, when you have two guys like Chris Jones and Frank Clark, you can maybe just rush 3 and then keep a spy on Watson and possibly get home and, play coverage, force him to, kind of beat the pass. We'll see if that's what they do. I think that'll be part of their plan.
Yeah, that would that's a plan that a lot of teams have used to try and slow down the Ravens offense. Well, the one thing I remember before the season started about the Chiefs, of course, was the starting offensive lineman that opted out to help fight the pandemic, and they replaced him with former Raven Kelechi Osemele. So how does the offensive line look in KC with through the first 2 weeks?
A little bit different than what we're used to. We're usually looking at like finesse offensive linemen versus kind of the big maulers in Kansas City. That's just what Andy Reid in the past has gone for. But now you bring Osemele in there. You've got Andrew Wiley at right guard opposite him. They both have a little bit of nasty in their game. They both block up the run really well, a little bit more powerful than what we've kind of used in the past. And it's allowing them to run more duo, more inside zone, just a little bit, some more of that hard running to the inside that we haven't seen. They've been mostly like an outside zone team, get guys moving, horizontally instead of down. But it just it's interesting. It's unique. It's something I'm not used to. I think it works with Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's game a little bit more because he ran a lot of that stuff at LSU. So I think part of it is shifting and adapting to the talent that you have at the running back position. But also, I mean, when you see a good offensive lineman out there who's a free agent like Kelechi Osemele, you got to go get him.
I know. Yeah, I really wanted him to come back, and I was really sad to see him go. We like him big and meaty, I guess, here in Baltimore. So
and
no
angry,
surprise. And angry. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
He plays angry. He had a tough game this last week. He had, I think, 3 or 4 penalties, and he was struggling a bit with that defensive line from Los Angeles. I was about to call him San Diego. Gosh. But he's struggling with the defensive line from Los Angeles. I mean, they have some big guys there too. Linval Joseph, the kid out of Notre Dame, Jerry Tillery, and then the guys on the edges too. I mean, they just gave him they gave him a tough time.
Yeah, that was a really intense game. Great division rival, great division matchup there. So going back to the defensive side of the ball for you guys, outside of the Honey Badger, we're talking about the secondary. The other guy that I look at in the secondary is a 4th-round pick, and pardon me if I'm butchering this. Is it L'Jarius
Sneed?
Yeah, L'Jarius Sneed. So he already has, he's the only Chiefs defensive back, I think, with interceptions so far. He has 2. What kind of player is Sneed?
He's physical. He's a physical press corner. He's really just impressed me with his tackling so far too. I mean, I talked about how bad the tackling was earlier, and then there's a cornerback who's like the person who's most impressed me as a tackler, which is usually not something that happens. But I mean, he's not a big guy too. He's not, he hasn't been in the system very long. He needs to still put on some good weight, but man, he tackles like he weighs, 100 pounds more than he does. He good form tackler, gets guys to the ground. And then, obviously the ball skills are apparent through these last couple of games. I think he's allowing like a 29 passer rating into his coverage. I think he's allowed like 2 receptions so far. And then, the interception, the first week, it was a bit of a gimme. In fact, Tyrann Mathieu had blitzed Deshaun Watson and the pressure, I think he hit his arm when he was throwing the ball. The ball was just out there floating for him. He caught it. This last week, it was a bit more difficult, but still kind of a gimme. I mean, Justin Herbert could have ran for the first down. Instead, he chucks the ball across the field, thinks he can make the play, and L'Jarius Sneed comes off of his man and comes in and just grabs the ball out of the air. But a little bit more difficult of a play. But, I mean, you can see he has a penchant. He knows where the ball is, and he's going to try and track it down. And, going up against some tough receivers this past week with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I mean, those guys are no slouches. Those are some of the best in the game. So I was really, really impressed with this rookie. He's turning out to possibly be the best draft pick from Kansas City. And I say that knowing how incredible Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. But, you consider the fact that the Chiefs are without their top 2 starting corners this last week. Rashad Breeland won't be back until week 5. Charvarius Ward's expected to be back this week for the Ravens game. But, if we didn't have a guy like this, it could have been a much different story in the first 2 weeks.
And how do you see them utilizing him? Like, for example, is he going to follow around the number 1 wide receiver? Is he going to stay inside or outside? Or how do you see him being used?
That's an interesting question because in the past, the Chiefs actually haven't had their cornerbacks follow. If you look at last year, Charvarius Ward was playing on the left side and Breeland was playing on the right side, and that was that. But This year, they've actually changed that up a bit. Snead actually traveled this past game, and I think he was covering Keenan Allen when he was traveling. So that was a little bit different. Something that I am, I'm not 100% sure if it'll keep up when guys like Ward are back, but we'll just see. I think he could possibly travel, but it's something that could just be an aberration.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he does travel. Does he follow Hollywood? Do they employ him on? Have you seen him guarding any tight ends? I'm interested in how the Chiefs plan to slow down the connection between Jackson and Mark Andrews.
They're pretty confident and comfortable in their safeties to cover tight ends. Probably going to see a lot of Daniel Sorensen, with Mark Andrews, maybe a little bit of Tyrann Mathieu as well. Okay. That would be my expectation. I don't think you'll see many corners covering the tight end unless they're flexed out wide and situation requires that based on whatever coverage they're running. But Snead, maybe he does follow Hollywood. He's a guy. I think he ran a 4.37, 4.3 something. So he's fast. He's got the speed. He's one of the only guys who I've seen who's been able to keep up with Tyreek Hill and knock the pass away in coverage. So
yeah, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, so he can keep up with the speedy guys. So that might be a situation where they tell him to follow. But on the other side, Rashad Fenton, he was no slouch last week. If Charvarius Ward can't go and they want Fenton in there, it might be a situation where they're okay with either of them covering whoever.
Gotcha. Well, when I look at pretty much any power ranking, it doesn't really matter which one I pull up. They all have the Ravens and Chiefs 1 and 2 in differing orders. Is this to you a clear-cut look and preview of the AFC Championship?
I hope it is, because I want to see these teams play more than once. But as we saw last season, I thought this was the clear-cut preview, last season when they faced off in week 3, but sometimes things don't shake out that way. But I hope we can see them play multiple times, because I think this is going to be one of the best games in the NFL season, and we're getting it early.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see them play, and teams, they go through a lot throughout the season. The Ravens team that we faced in week 3 last year, not the same team that was in the playoffs. And same goes for the Chiefs. They had 2 different players that were pretty crucial that weren't around in that first matchup, being defensive tackle Mike Pennell and left guard Stephen Wisniewski, who's now with the Steelers. But the teams, not only the personnel change, but the types of things that you're doing change. You kind of find yourself throughout the season, so to speak. So I feel like it would have been in a completely different matchup. And we would have gotten to see 2 of the best teams in the NFL going at it again. So who doesn't want that?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about as far as the Chiefs go? What is it they need to do to come into the bank and leave with a win?
I think they just need to not get too far behind the 8 ball, so to speak, to use a quote from Brett Veach. They keep falling into these early game holes. Last week, obviously, they didn't so much in week 1, but eventually it's going to come back to bite them. They're the comeback kings right now, but eventually they're not going to be able to come back. And against a talented team like Baltimore, you don't want to give them too much of a head start. So I think not falling behind is going to be important this week. And I really think they got to find a way to stop the run better than they have. They've really struggled in that area, obviously, with the tackling and just getting of the season stuff. I think part of that will be fixed because Mike Pennell back off suspension, and he completely changed their run defense last year down the stretch. And without him, I don't think they win the Super Bowl. He had that type of an impact playing next to Chris Jones. So I think with him back in the mix, rotating in with Derek Nottie on the defensive line, they're going to be able to stuff up the run a little bit better. And I think that, if Ravens don't have that run game to lean on, I think that it's going to make things really tough just because of the talent and the ball hawks that the Chiefs have in the secondary.
And on the other side, what do you think the Chiefs should be most concerned, and what worries you most about the Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the reigning league MVP. I mean, if there was one quarterback that I wanted to have other than Patrick Mahomes right now, he's the guy. I mean, just an immense talent and just deadly on the ground and through the air. I mean, we saw the improvements he made last season as a passer, and he's only gotten better this year. So I just, he's the one I have circled that I'm worried about. Obviously, I was a big fan of J.K. Dobbins too, coming out. I almost liked him just as much as I like Clyde. So he's someone I'm concerned about. And I mean, Mark Andrews, he's really impressed me so far this season. I think he's going to, by the end of the year, have his name kind of up there in the Travis Kelce and George Kittle's type of category. So, and I like Daniel Sorensen a lot, but he struggles against some of these talented tight ends. I mean, Hunter Henry last week, he got a couple on him, and Dirty Dan, he'll get you a few times, but he's susceptible to some of these talented athletic tight ends.
Absolutely. So we'll let you go with this one. What is your prediction for the game? What do you think is going to happen?
Gosh, I just keep looking back at the Chiefs, and they keep finding ways to win. It's ugly. They're down. Whatever happens, they find a way to win. And, I mean, you look at it last week, it took them a half to get it together. But then Patrick Mahomes kind of started figuring out, where he could get the passing game going. He started to figure out, okay, hey, they're going to drop back and play coverage. I'm going to make them pay with my legs. They do whatever it takes to come away with the win. All right, so we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what they're able to do this week against the talented Baltimore Ravens team. But oh man, I can't wait for this matchup, guys. I've been glowing this whole conversation. It's going to be so much fun, and it's just going to be a blast.
I think you're right, though. I think if they fall behind, I mean, look, the Ravens have won 13 straight regular season games. They've won 5 straight by 16 points or more in the regular season. So if you fall behind against the Ravens, you're done. I mean, that run, they have no problem going out and running 20 consecutive run plays right down, take up a whole quarter, and end it with a touchdown. So,
and I mean, we saw last week. I mean, if the Chiefs can't stop the run, they can't get off the field. So, I mean, the Chargers were taking up these drives, just time-sucking drives. Again, it's why I hope that Mike Pennell does something to change that run defense. And he did last year. So we have a feeling that he will again this year. He might be the key to this game. He really might.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We're really excited for it. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you as the season goes on. Hopefully we get to have this call again, like Glenn said, for an AFC championship game.
Let's do it.
Charles, thank you for coming on. Why don't you let folks know what you're working on and where they can find your stuff?
Yeah, you can check us out at chiefswire.usatoday.com, on social media at the Chiefswire on Twitter, /Chiefswire on Facebook. You can listen to the Chiefswire podcast Thursdays on our website. I believe we're on Spotify as well. So check us out there. You can follow me at GoldMCTNFL on Twitter.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a good one.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, Charles.